Good morning and happy holidays. This is Brandon Hampton, Leadership Institute 18, and this is my summary on the Project Leadership Conference in Sun Valley for 2017. To begin with, I was very impressed with the overall function and setup of the Leadership Institute in Sun Valley. I know being away from your classroom can always be difficult and challenging, especially with subplans and finding a substitute, especially in the Boise district. But I'm glad I went, and I learned a lot of really good information I can apply to my own administration and hopefully make me a better leader as we move through the process for the next 3 years. I also really enjoyed meeting the members of the Leadership Institute from 18 all the way down to 16. I think we've got a lot of really good people in the program, and it's nice to network with others that are vested in CTE throughout the state. Well, let's begin. Project Leadership in Sun Valley was held the first, I believe, first couple weeks in November, if I'm not mistaken. It was outstanding. The very first thing we did when we received our book, which was Leaders Eat Last, was to read it and summarize it for our opening evening when we met. As in review of the book, I got a lot of really good information out of it. Some things that I would agree with Tim that were really well written. The narratives made the book flow. The personal interjections by the author sometimes weren't necessarily needed, and they kind of detracted from the overall book's meaning. A couple things I do remember about the book that I liked the most was the amount that my personal administration right now kind of adheres to these principles. So it was great to read the ideas in the book and then see them applied either instinctively or through training in my own administration. For example, my administration at the building I'm at now, we will never starve, as he states with all of his staff meetings, because he always provides us ample amounts of food, be it breakfast staff meetings or in the evenings when we have parent-teacher conferences. But when we do sit down as a faculty and eat, it's amazing that he is always the last one to eat. And I never really thought about that until I actually read the book. And there's a reason, as mentioned, the military does that with their leadership. The soldiers eat first and the commanding officers eat second. And my administration does that. I don't know if it's by training or it's just instinctual, but it's pretty impressive to see that happen. Another point of the book that I really enjoyed was establishing culture. My administration and numerous administrations I've worked for in the Boise district have done a phenomenal job of establishing that culture and encouraging the faculty to be part of the culture and establish that. And one way in which we do that is very simplistically with staff apparel. So on Fridays, all of the staff wears our staff logoed shirts for our building, and it's somewhat unspoken rule throughout the school district in Boise is to wear your staff shirt on Fridays, and it does, believe it or not, help with the camaraderie, and it does help with establishing that culture and core. And lastly was the lifestyle of administration. In the book it did say that you need to take time for yourself, and during the week at the Leadership Institute that was also spoken by Randy Russell. As Tim mentioned in Sharpening Your Saw, I also attended that workshop, and it was extremely impressive just to listen to Randy speak. Exceptional motivational speaker. You can tell he has a passion for teaching and just a passion for life. And one thing on which I saw that my administration does was to leave time for yourself. It's, you always have to have that reset or that detuning, as we call it in our building, where you can go out and get a drink with somebody or go for a run with somebody. And our administration, our building encourages that. So on Fridays, we typically meet somewhere off-site and don't talk about school. We just talk about life and in general. And I know in my building, there are some of us that meet after school twice a week and go for a run. And once again, the only rule is to not talk about school, which really allows us to kind of become personal with each other and make those connections that really help us succeed through the educational process, especially in buildings that can be a little tougher than others. So I was really impressed with that. When we went to one of our breakouts was the personality matrix that we were to find out more about ourselves. Going into the workshop, I knew I was very mission driven, task centric. That comes from 25 years of fighting wildland fire for the Forest Service. When you're given an assignment, you put your head down, you put your elbows up, and you go to work, and you don't stop until the job is done. In the Wildland Fire Service, you can see your outcome days, hours, weeks later. Education is a little bit slower machine. So one thing that I quickly realized was my mission-driven personality works great for Wildland Fire when we all know the end outcome and we all have the goal in sight, but not so well when you're dealing with education and the time in which it takes to move the process. That's one thing I definitely will start working on, is instead of, in essence, dictating what my colleagues do, which, as you can imagine, does not produce much productivity, only negative attitudes and hurt feelings, that I need to work more with my staff as a collaborative force instead of a dictator where I say do this and they do it. That just seems to work. I realized I was heavy in the mission-driven side, but I just didn't realize quite how heavy I was. My circle of shading was definitely held and colored in on the far left side, I would call it, between the 10 and 11 o'clock side of the clock scale on our form. It was primarily dark, really dark, with very little input on the 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock side of my matrix. That would indicate that my feelings, once again, have always been mission-centric. You fall back on what you've been trained with and what you're familiar with and what your comfort level is. And for me, that's something I'm going to work on as an administrator as I move through. In addition, the other part of the book that I really, really liked was the portion which the author talked about the ceramic cup versus the styrofoam cup. I really thought that was a phenomenal chapter of the book, and in essence, the summary of that was that the position which you hold dictates the cup in which you're going to be drinking out of. When you leave that position or move to another position, the cup that was assigned to the position you left will still be assigned to that. For example, if you're drinking out of a ceramic cup because you are a leader or administrator at a high-ranking level, when you move to another position, that cup stays with the person that fulfills that role. Then you'll be moving into a styrofoam cup. So this cup is determined by the position, not by the person who holds that position. I thought that really important in education. I'm sure we've all seen those individual teachers or administrators who think that since they're in a position of power or authority, they hold that cup. And when that position of power and authority moves to another individual, they have a hard time relating and accepting their new role because their cup has changed. So that was one of the probably most pivotal and thought-provoking chapters that I read during that book, and I really did enjoy it the most. I actually made a quote and put it on my wall above my desk regards to which cup am I going to be drinking out of, the ceramic cup or the styrofoam cup. Lastly, one item of the workshop that I did enjoy, I didn't think I was going to, is the team building. It's not one of my favorite things to do, to be placed into an uncomfortable situation with a bunch of people that I'm not real familiar with and be forced to become a team member and forced to perform an activity. Thankfully, I had Brandy and Greg in my team building activity, and that made it fun. Just to watch Greg's uncomfortableness in a situation like that made it all that much more enjoyable. So Greg, if you were here with me, I would give you a big hug, and maybe we could carry, marbles across my living room floor on a handkerchief just to relive that portion, and Brandy could cheer us on. But in the end, the team building activity was good. I can see myself utilizing some of those tools as a future administrator, but it did take some buy-in from myself. I had lots of eye rolls and heavy sighs of, gosh, is this all what we're going to do today? can we do something else that would make me a better administrator? And in reflection, I realized that those team building activities, when used appropriately, can make you a better administrator. So in closing, I had a great time with the project leadership and enjoyed meeting people from Leadership Institute 18 on down. I look forward to attending the Project Leadership Conference next year in Sun Valley. I'm excited to see what year 2 has in store for us. Well, happy holidays, and I hope you enjoy the time off with your families and friends, and we'll see you guys in 2018.